Today, we are sinking our teeth into a truly foundational piece of cosmic horror, M.P. Shield's 1901 novel, The Purple Cloud. It is a bleak, terrifying story that doesn't start with some big explosion, but with a quiet, creeping, and strangely fragrant silence that has completely smothered the world, leaving just one man behind to grapple with his guilt.
So our story really kicks off right here, in the middle of this vast Arctic nothingness. Our narrator, a man named Adam Jefferson, has just stumbled upon a ghost ship, a ship he knows all too well. But, this isn't some heroic rescue story. It's more like an epitaph, delivered by what he calls a fragrant ship of death. What a chilling phrase, right? It perfectly sets the stage for the end of absolutely everything. All right, let's get into this.
So before we can even begin to understand how the world ended, we first have to see the aftermath. We're following Jeffson's journey south from the North Pole, and it all leads to this single, horrifying discovery. The expedition ship he left behind, the Boreal, is now just adrift, and it's unnervingly quiet. Just try to picture this scene for a second. After months of this grueling, isolated trek, Jefferson finally spots the masts on the horizon. Can you imagine the hope, the relief? But as he gets closer, he starts to realize something is deeply wrong. The sails are torn, but they're still set. The engines are stone cold. There are these two huge ice floes just sluggishly bumping against her bows over and over. This ship isn't anchored, it's a derelict. It's basically a coffin waiting on the ice.
And this is where the real horror kicks in. When Jefferson climbs aboard, he finds the crew. But they aren't sleeping in their bunks. No, they are dead, frozen in the middle of whatever they were doing. One man is halfway up a ladder. Another is in the middle of cleaning his rifle. A third is literally frozen embracing another sailor's neck. They all died instantly, in these bizarre active poses. It's an absolutely terrifying sight.
And then there's this. Covering the decks, the ropes, the bodies themselves, there's this thin, almost weightless layer of purplish dust. It is everywhere, in every little crack and crevice. This is it. This is the physical evidence of the apocalypse. The calling card of whatever silent killer just swept across the entire globe.
So what does Jeffson do? Well, he's a doctor, a scientist. He gets to his microscope. He knows that the faint scent of peach blossom is tied to only one thing, cyanogen, basically prussic acid. And his analysis confirms his worst fears. The dust is full of these tiny, bright yellow particles, crystals of potassic ferrocyanide. The air itself, the very atmosphere of the planet, had been turned into a deadly poison vapor. So the question is no longer what happened, but why.
To really get the consequence, we have to rewind and look at the cause. See, the Boreal's journey wasn't just some noble scientific mission. It was an act of pure global hubris, fueled by an insane amount of greed and pushed forward even in the face of a terrifying prophecy.
And here it is. This is the engine that drove the whole thing. An eccentric billionaire, Charles P. Stickney, left a fortune, $175 million, to the first man, not the first team, but the first single individual to set foot on the North Pole. A prize that big, well, it lit a fire under the whole world, turning a quest for knowledge into this frantic, high-stakes, deadly race.
But there was one voice screaming against this global madness, a fiery preacher named Mackay. He argued that the pole was like a modern-day tree of knowledge, a place that God had intentionally kept veiled and forbidden. And he prophesied that if humanity dared to trespass there, the result would be a catastrophe, swift, universal, and absolute. Of course, nobody listened.
Okay, so now let's take a closer look at the man at the center of it all, Adam Jefferson himself. He didn't just get lucky and find a spot on this expedition. Oh no. His journey to the pole was a dark one, paved with a very suspicious string of deaths that, well, conveniently cleared his path to the prize.
You have to understand, Jeffson is not a normal guy. His whole life he's felt these two warring voices inside his head, a black power and a white power, basically fighting for control of his soul. One pushes him toward chaos and destruction, the other begs him to be cautious. And to make things worse, his fiancée Clodagh is constantly whispering in his ear about the glory and, the fancy title that's waiting for the man who reaches the pole first.
And so, one by one, obstacles in his path just disappear. First, Peter Peters, the expedition's original doctor, dies from atropine poisoning while under Jefferson's care.
How convenient. Then, another colleague, Aubrey Maitland, is shot dead by Jefferson in what everyone writes off as a tragic hunting accident. And finally, David Wilson, a guy who is openly suspicious of Jefferson, is killed by him in a duel, a murder easily hidden by the vast, empty Arctic.
Right before their fatal duel, David Wilson says this to Jeffson. He sees the pattern. He suspects Jeffson and his lover were in on Peter's death. "You are a deadly beast," he says. And it's a judgment that just rings with this awful truth, especially as Jeffson becomes the sole beneficiary of all this death.
And so, after all the betrayal and bloodshed, Jeffson, now completely alone after the rest of his comrades died in an ice shift, finally reaches his goal. He is standing at 90 degrees north latitude, the forbidden heart of the world. But what he finds there isn't glory. It's an ancient, living, cosmic horror.
I mean, the place itself is just unearthly. It's this perfectly smooth plain of ice that stretches out to the horizon, and it's covered in trillions of dollars worth of meteorites studded with diamonds and gems. It's a field of unimaginable wealth that is at the same time completely barren, totally meaningless and bone-chillingly cold.
Right at the very center of this plain, Jeffson finds the pole. But it's not some geographical point on a map. No, it's a circular lake about a mile across, and the liquid inside it isn't water, it's alive. A shivering, wheeling substance that's constantly splashing up against the central pillar of ice, like it's in a state of eternal, agonizing ecstasy.
The feeling that washes over Jefferson in this moment is just this overwhelming sense of violation. He understands immediately that he's looking at something sacred, something primal, something utterly forbidden to human eyes. The sight is so psychically damaging, so profoundly wrong, that his mind just short-circuits. He collapses, unconscious, having seen the secret engine of the world.
When Jefferson finally wakes up and starts fleeing south, he becomes the first and the only person to witness the direct result of his crime. He gets a front-row seat as that preacher's prophecy comes true, as a lowering sky and thundery weather descend upon the entire planet.
As he travels, he sees this bizarre purple vapor just stretched across the horizon, and it gets bigger every single day. Then the wind shifts, and it brings that sickly sweet smell of peach blossom. He gets violently ill, vomiting uncontrollably. And then, a profound, absolute silence falls over everything.
The whole world becomes a morgue. He stumbles over dead bears and their cubs, fields of dead seals, thousands of dead foxes, literally millions of dead birds falling from the sky. The ice is just littered with corpses. Everything is dead. The cloud passed over, and it left nothing behind but a silent, frozen graveyard. He is the only living thing for hundreds and hundreds of miles.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Jefferson finally makes it back to the coast. He finds the derelict Boreal, and the horrifying truth is confirmed. That purple cloud wasn't just some local weather event. It was global. And he is now utterly, completely, and totally alone. His name is Adam, and in this terrible, crushing irony, he has become both the first man of a new, dead world and the very last man of the old one. He has inherited the entire Earth, but his kingdom is nothing more than a planet-sized tomb. An eternity of silence is all that stretches out before him.
And really, this is the true horror that the rest of the novel explores. This is the question we're left with. The physical apocalypse is over, but now the real story begins. It's the story of a single, guilty mind grappling with absolute solitude and its own inevitable slide into madness. And this is how Jefferson actually begins the manuscript he writes, an account that he knows nobody will ever read. He admits his memory is already failing, his mind is already starting to fray at the edges. He is the last witness to the end of the world, and his testimony is already fading away into the great silent void that he helped create.